Well, thank you very much, Ibu Devi. I'm mindful of the fact that I've left the economists out of this round of questions, so let me just pose a couple of questions to the economists. I'd be grateful if they keep their answers short because we want a question. What are Indonesia's plans with respect to the TPP? We know it's part of the RCEP discussions, we know of course it's part of the AEC discussions. But what about the TPP? We recognize that many of the trade barriers in Indonesia elsewhere in the region are already behind the borders, and that's what TPP is trying to get at. Are there any plans at all? Is there a game plan in Indonesia with respect to TPP? The next question is to Dr. Rana. With respect to the ASEAN Economic Community. You know, what's surprising about the ASEAN Economic Community is that there's not that much excitement about it. One of the reasons perhaps there's not that much excitement about it is that many of the trade barriers between countries in Southeast Asia are already so low because of the WTO commitments and GSP commitments and so forth. In other words, the actual reduction in trade barriers within ASEAN as a result of the ASEAN Economic Community will be very, very small. And it's very unlikely that countries will even bother to use them because the administrative costs of using those arrangements probably will outweigh any of the benefits. Do you see it that way, or do you see that the AEC actually will be introducing significant additional changes that perhaps the rest of us don't see? So over to you, Pashamsu.
Vikram, thank you. On this, unfortunately, I've not been involved in discussion within the government on this TPP. But so far, I think it's safe to say that right now Indonesia is not taking an active role. Is not even actively or officially observing TPP discussion. I think right now the priority is actually, as maybe I try to link this with Shubham comments, actually to find a new narrative as to why integration is actually important. And right now, although from the international relationship agenda, yes, either TPP or RCEP or ASEAN itself is very important because of the maybe geopolitical reason. But in terms of driving growth, I think this is the time for us to inject the relevance of ASEAN for Indonesia's own sake of economic reform. Because right now what we're seeing is that the economy is slowing down because of measures, and also more importantly is because of the slump in commodity prices. So therefore the economy needs to diversify, and one of the avenue that might be able to also to Indonesia to take more advantage is actually to integrate more with ASEAN, who has more diverse economic structure in terms of manufacturing, etc. And Indonesia already have or has a mechanism in place, which is the AEC, AFTA, etc. But somehow the relevance in driving the reform or policy process has been, sort of like diminished because of the good times that Indonesia enjoyed before. But now I think it's timely again for Indonesia to find a new narrative as to why Indonesia needs to re-engage more with ASEAN, with respect to drive more integration.
And ASEAN talks about Pillar 1, and the major achievement of Pillar 1 is, of course, reduction in tariff. Those things would have happened without AEC. Under AFTA, also a lot of trade liberalization was taking place. The whole agenda of non-tariff barriers remains. Nothing has been done over there. So on the tariff preferences, you are right. I mean, not much has happened. Whatever has been achieved would have happened even without the AEC. I think the main thing for me about the AEC is firmly establishing ASEAN centrality in Asian regional architecture. Here I refer to ASEAN, and I interpret ASEAN centrality not in a political sense, because as you said, I'm an economist. I mean, we have no other institution but the ASEAN Secretary to coordinate the activities of ASEAN +3, East Asia Summit, ASEAN +1 negotiations. They are very busy people out there. And I also clearly see the role of giving some role to India and Russia even in ASEAN. So ASEAN centrality is very much there, And ASEAN Secretariat has a big role to play. And Bikram, in relation to this institutional thing, 1,400 meetings, 250 staff, very understaffed and all that, under budget ASEAN Secretariat. ASEAN last year has established a high-level task force. They do realize that with the level of integration and with the recognition of ASEAN centrality, they have got to do a bit more to strengthen institutions. Before it was okay, we could have, we're having this 1,400 meetings, building relationship. A weak secretariat was perhaps fine, but now things have to change. So let's see what they come up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rana. Pak Aziz, let me give the mic back to you, and perhaps we can get some questions from the audience.
Thank you very much, Bakrie. Looking at the clock, we're almost running out of time. No statements. You can please raise your hand if you have any question. Gentleman in the back. Yep.
Opinion regarding China's existence in the ASEAN-China Free Trade Agreement, because we believe that as Indonesia, China has become a threat to our economy, because our product somehow can compete with Chinese product. We want to know about America's opinion, because we believe that America also afraid with China's existence in ACFTA, and we want to know how should America react to China's existence in ACFTA. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to move directly to the second question.
But the public secret is that we know that the TPP that the US is currently leading will undermine ASEAN's mentality. So how does the US balance these two needs? Because we all understand that the US needs ASEAN to be strong and coherent to balance against China. And for the Singaporean and Indonesian panelists, having said that, having seen that TPP will undermine ASEAN's mentality, how do Singapore and Indonesia respond to this? Because Singapore is in TPP or Indonesia is not in TPP, because TPP will basically undermine ASEAN's mentality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Or the American view on China's threat to Indonesia. I would suggest maybe Dr. Paul could answer that question.
On behalf of the idea is that we hope to have robust, prosperous partners in South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, and ultimately even in Russia and Central Asia, network of states that will protect their own interests, sometimes collectively or individually, as China goes through the process of strengthening itself militarily and economically, and working out its relationships with each of these regional partners. There has been a history in China of abrupt changes in policy direction, and so no one can assume that what we see today is going to be a smooth path tomorrow. And that's why we are developing these kinds of complex relationships, create a balancing network around China, without in any way trying to form a threat to China. Now, to go to the economic aspects of the question in the first questioner's remarks, the United States is basically quite comfortable with China's deepening integration in Southeast Asia economically. That may be to exclude the U.S. down the road, but we don't see that at this time. It's up to us to keep our own part of the game up and to stay active in Southeast Asia. What's a little bit surprising to me is how Southeast Asia is not seizing the opportunities that China's presenting. And some of these are getting into the China market with products from Southeast Asia, rather than relying so heavily on commodities, developing more higher production goods. The second thing is not to take advantage of the opportunity to pick up some of the labor migration, the opportunities that are being caused by China's rising costs for infrastructure, real estate, and labor. Indonesia would seem to me in an excellent position to pick up some of the industries that are now looking for a new home because China has become too high cost a production platform for a lot of products that go into the international marketplace. Indonesia's infrastructural challenges are very well known. You can't get many containers to port in Indonesia if you happen to be a shoe manufacturer or a garment manufacturer and others. This is an area where Indonesia can do its own self a lot of good and pick up the opportunities that are going to be leaving from China as China moves up the value chain.
Thank you, Doug. Shubham, do you want to add to that, to the whole
question from the economic perspective?
Right. Actually, I think Doug put it very well. I mean, China's growing economic ties and trade with China represents an opportunity for Indonesia, especially as the cost of labor and congestion in the China cities along the coast goes up. Many industries will be looking to relocate, and Indonesia is a potential destination, and Indonesia is in need of higher value-added jobs for its growing working age population. I think it's about 2 million young Indonesians come of working age every year between now and 2025. One would hope that there would be good, high-paying jobs for them, and that would mean really having a dramatic increase in the kinds of manufacturing and service, higher value-added service-related jobs that Indonesia hasn't seen very much of in the last 10 years. So, yes, there will be competition between Chinese manufacturers and existing Indonesian firms. And I think that competition often gets highlighted. I remember when the China-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement came into effect, there was a lot of press in Jakarta, in Indonesia, about the threat. Well, the fact of the matter was that actually Indonesian companies had done pretty well up to that point. The actual coming into effect of the China-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement did not result in, a dramatic reduction in tariffs. Those tariffs had already been going down for several years prior to that, and Indonesian firms had proved to be relatively effective at competing with Chinese firms. That is not to say that there won't be certain subsegments or certain industries which will face direct competition from China, but I think Indonesia as a country should see this as an opportunity that Indonesian firms and entrepreneurs and young people can rise up to. Okay, because ultimately integration with not only China but with other economies means there will be a much larger market for Indonesian entrepreneurs and businesses to interact with.
Let me try and respond to the second questioner's question, which I thought was opposed to the US admin. I think the way the United States sees the TPP is that this is not a geographically determined initiative. It is an initiative which is being determined by standards that the United States would like to see, and with like-minded countries in the area of trade. What the United States talks of is a 21st century agreement on trade and investment. So the standards, in a sense, first, and then countries that are willing to abide by those standards are very welcome to come and join the TPP initiative. And right now, there are 12 countries that are negotiating this. But even now, Korea is beginning to take an interest in addition. And as you know, the United States is also negotiating a similar sort of arrangement, which is the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership with Europe. Now, having said that, what the United States is doing is also introducing a new initiative within Southeast Asia called the Enhanced Economic Engagement Initiative, EEE initiative, where they're trying to provide technical assistance to countries to help raise the understanding, the analysis, and the policies that are needed to get countries ready to join the TPP in the future. So once the TPP is set up and it's negotiated, other countries